Cool it!
Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days.
Remember when TV shows had moral lessons, theme songs you could hum in your sleep, and characters who made you want to buy a leather jacket even if you couldn't ride a bike? Yeah, those were happy days. See what I did there? It started as a one-off episode buried inside an anthology series and somehow became one of the most iconic sitcoms of the 70s and 80s, but behind the jukeboxes, the sock hops, and the endless A's, there was a whole lot you probably didn't know. From draft deferments and disappearing siblings to time travel and talking dogs. Today we're counting down 15 weird, wild, and totally true facts about Happy Days, the show that made Milwaukee cool and turned a quiet sitcom into a pop culture 50s time capsule. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's jump right in. Number 15, Ron Howard almost said no. By the time Happy Days came knocking, Ron Howard had already done the whole wholesome TV son thing. He was Opie, America's favorite, oh shucks, kid next door.
What it is, Pa, is that nowadays kids get 75 cents a week allowance instead of 25 cents.
America loved him, but Ron was ready to move on. He'd been accepted to USC Film School and was making short films on weekends. He'd already mastered the all shucks routine on camera, now he wanted to call the shots behind it. So when Gary Marshall offered him the role of Chuck Cunningham, Howard basically said, no thanks. He wasn't exactly itching to get locked into another sitcom, but then real life stepped in with a plot twist. The draft. His number was low enough to make things complicated. Enter the ultimate TV loophole, a work deferment. Back then, if your job supported at least 30 people, you could apply to skip the draft. A network sitcom? Well, that definitely qualified, so Ron agreed to do the pilot, which aired in 1972 as a segment called Love and the Happy Days on the anthology series Love American Style.
Today's a big day. We're going to be the first family on the block to get a television set. My sister has to tell everybody, but I only told my best friend, Potsy.
Open the door, Richard.
Hey, Potsy. My mom didn't like you climbing through there.
By the time Happy Days officially premiered in 1974, the draft was off the table, and so was film school. Howard stuck around, and Gary Marshall kept his promise. He gave Ron behind-the-scenes access and helped him build a directing career while the cameras were still rolling. That second career worked out pretty well, because Ron Howard went on to direct Splash, Cocoon, Parenthood, Backdraft, Apollo 13, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Frost Nixon, and even Solo, A Star Wars Story. And in 2001, he won 2 Academy Awards for A Beautiful Mind, Best Director and Best Picture. From milkshakes to Best Director, that's one hell of a career arc. Number 14, Fonzie wasn't supposed to be the main character. Originally, the character was called Arthur Masciarelli, MASH for short, which was a nod to creator Gary Marshall's family name. But ABC thought it sounded too close to MASH, which was already a big hit on another network, so they pushed for something catchier. The name Fonzie was a last-minute change that ended up becoming TV legend, and the character? He was never meant to be the star. Fonzie started out as a background player, a cool guy in a leather jacket who gave Chuck Cunningham a little edge. He was Milwaukee's answer to a pet tiger, cool to show off but kept on a leash. But then something changed. We all saw Henry Winkler snap his fingers and say, "Ay," and the entire country fell in love. Fan mail started pouring in and ratings spiked every time he was on screen.
Fonz, we like sticks a lot, you know that. It's the kids down at Arnold's, they don't understand. They think there's only 2 different kinds of people, white and colored.
There are 2 kinds of people. Cool and nerds, and the people down at Arnold's are nerds.
Producers realized they weren't just looking at a scene stealer, they were looking at the future of the show, so they made the shift. Little by little, the focus moved from Richie's coming-of-age stories to Fonzie's adventures. And at one point, ABC got so bold they seriously considered renaming the show Fonzie's Happy Days, or just plain Fonzie. Gary Marshall and Ron Howard said nope and were ready to walk. That idea got shut down real fast, but by then the message was clear. This wasn't Chuck Cunningham's show anymore. It was Fonzie's world and everyone else was just hanging out in it. Number 13, Fonzie's leather jacket was a constant battle with censors. Here's something that'll make you appreciate how much TV has changed. ABC's Standards and Practices department originally wouldn't let Fonzie wear his leather jacket because they thought it made him look like a juvenile delinquent. That's why he appeared in a windbreaker in earlier seasons.
Hi, Fonzie.
To 1970s network censors, a leather jacket practically screamed motorcycle gangs, switchblade fight, and the downfall of American youth, which to me is hilarious considering Fonzie was the guy who fixed jukeboxes, taught life lessons, and helped kids learn all about the letter A. The compromise: Fonzie could only wear his leather jacket if he was on, or very close to, his motorcycle, because that way it was practical, for safety reasons.
Hey, this is a very nice place you got here.
This led to some of the most creative set design in sitcom history. Need Fonzie to wear his jacket? Well, you better park that motorcycle somewhere. At Arnold's, there's a bike just outside the window. At school, Fonzie's bike just randomly is chilling in the hallway. And family dinner at the Cunninghams? Yep, there's a Harley in the living room. Okay, I made some of these up, but you get the point. Eventually, Fonzie's popularity made the whole argument pointless. The censors gave up, the jacket stayed on, and the country somehow survived the cultural threat of a nice guy in cowhide. Number 12, Chuck Cunningham vanished so completely he became a TV trope.
See, I'm changing my free throw from an underhand to an overhand. Looks better for the fans.
Let's talk about one of television's greatest unsolved mysteries. Whatever happened to Chuck Cunningham, Richie's older brother who showed up for 2 seasons, then vanished more completely than a witness in a mom movie? Chuck didn't just leave, he was erased. No farewell episode, no he joined the army, no he moved away to college. One day he was there, and the next, poof, the Cunningham suddenly only had 2 kids, and it was like Chuck had never existed at all.
What can I say? Both of our children are married now, and they're starting out to build lives of their own.
Both children? Poor Chuck. He was originally played by Gavin O'Harely, who left after season 1, later saying he didn't want to play a character who would grunt and bounce a basketball once every couple of weeks. I mean, that's fair. Randolph Roberts took over in season 2, but the character still never clicked with audiences. Meanwhile, Fonzie's cool charm was stealing the spotlight, and the writers realized they didn't need 2 Cunningham sons. So they made a decision and never looked back. Chuck's disappearance was so iconic it gave birth to a whole TV trope, Chuck Cunningham syndrome, used whenever a character disappears from a show without explanation and the series pretends they never existed. It was such a popular move, we've got a whole video playlist about vanishing characters. The link is in the description if you're brave enough to go down that rabbit hole. More than 50 years later, Chuck is still the gold standard for TV disappearing acts. He's the godfather of gone, if you will. A reminder that sometimes the most lasting impact a character can have is in how completely forgotten they are. Number 11, Henry Winkler was terrified of motorcycles. Here's something that would have totally shattered the Fonzie mystique if we'd known about it back then. Henry Winkler, the guy who made leather jackets and motorcycles look like the ultimate combination, was terrified of motorcycles. Not like, I don't love them terrified. We're talking full-on cold sweat, nope, not happening kind of fear. Alright, maybe I exaggerated that last part a little, but you have to get the point, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it though. Because Fonzie without a motorcycle is like Batman without the Batmobile. The crew had to get really creative. Most of those riding scenes, that's either a stuntman or the bike being pulled by a truck while Winkler sat on it pretending to cruise. And those close-ups? The bike wasn't even moving, just a stationary shot with the background rolling behind him. Winkler has joked that he could never figure out the clutch and he wasn't willing to crash for the sake of method acting, which is fair enough. So next time you see Fonzie revving the engine and cruising like the king of cool, just know, behind the scenes there was a guy hoping the thing didn't tip over. Kind of makes you respect the performance even more, right? Number 10, Happy Days almost got cancelled, until Fonzie and a live audience saved it. It's wild to think about now, but Happy Days was this close to getting cancelled after season 2. The ratings were low, the vibe was off, and the show wasn't clicking. ABC was ready to pull the plug, and honestly, the early seasons felt kind of flat.
Thought you'd never get here.
What's up? I got the message.
Not now, later. Right now, Ralph Malph's gonna show us his hickey. Huh? Come on.
Where'd you get it?
It was shot single camera style with canned laughter, no live audience, and barely any energy. The timing felt stiff and the comedy didn't land. It was like watching a nostalgia piece that hadn't figured out what it wanted to be. Then came season 3 and 2 things saved the show. First, they brought in a live studio audience. That one change transformed everything. Suddenly, the actors had real people to play to, the jokes hit harder, and the energy was contagious. And secondly, they leaned into the breakout star Fonzie. Henry Winkler absolutely lit up with an audience. The Fonzie we all remember, the guy who could walk into Arnold's, raise an eyebrow, and steal the scene, that didn't really come alive until he had a crowd reacting to him.
Now listen, this is your big chance. Nobody knows you up there.
Right.
At all costs, do not be yourself.
Oh, we're not Fonzie.
That applause when he snapped his fingers and girls appeared, well, that wasn't sound editing. That was real, and it gave the show the spark it had been missing. Between the live audience and Fonzie's rising popularity, Happy Days went from almost canceled to one of the biggest shows on TV, moving up to number 1 in the Nielsen ratings for the 1976-77 season. It also ran for 9 more seasons. Not bad for a show that almost didn't survive its first 2 seasons at all. Number 9, Tom Hanks guest starred as a karate chopping rival. You ever watch something years later and go, wait, is that Tom Hanks? Well, if you ever caught the 1982 Happy Days episode A Little Case of Revenge, you probably had that exact reaction. Before he was Forrest Gump or winning Oscars left and right, Tom Hanks popped up on Happy Days as Dwayne Twitchell, a karate black belt out for revenge. His beef? Well, Fonzie supposedly pushed him off a swing when they were kids. So naturally, fully grown and very dramatic, Dwayne showed up in Milwaukee looking for revenge. Because nothing says reasonable adult behavior like holding a childhood grudge and resolving it with martial arts. Fonzie, in true Fonzie fashion, refuses to fight. He handles it with compassion, grace, and just enough cool to walk away looking like the real winner.
You know what you did? You stood up to the fight. I like that. You got guts.
I do?
Yeah, you never got killed, but you got guts.
And here's the kicker. This weird little role actually helped launch Hank's career. Ron Howard remembered him later when casting Splash for Disney, and boom, Tom Hanks was officially on his way to becoming a national treasure. So yeah, Fonzie may have defeated a karate master with kindness, but Happy Days helped give the world Tom Hanks, so we'll call that a win. Number 8, the show literally invented jumping the shark. Now, I know you've heard the phrase jumping the shark, right? Yeah, Happy Days was the OG show for that. It came from a season 5 episode where Fonzie water skis over a shark in swim trunks in California because why not?
He's ready to make the jump.
The episode called Hollywood Part 3 was meant to be a big finale to a multi-part storyline. Instead, it became famous for all the wrong reasons. The phrase jumping the shark was coined years later by writer John Heen and his college roommate to describe when a show hits the panic button and tries to keep us watching with pure nonsense. What's wild is that Happy Days went on for 6 more seasons and a bunch of those episodes were still hits, so even if it jumped the shark, the show kept swimming. At this point, the shark jumping moment has become more famous for what it represents than for what it actually was. It's like visiting a pop culture landmark, not because it's impressive, but because you've heard about it your whole life. Quick poll time. Who do you think was the coolest character on Happy Days? The Fonz with his supernatural hair and leather jacket, Richie with his earnest charm, or maybe Potsy with his, well, his enthusiasm? Drop your pick in the comments section below, and hey, if you're loving these nostalgic deep dives into classic TV, smash that like button and subscribe. We've got weird facts and forgotten stories dropping every week because apparently this is what we do with our lives now. Now let's head back to Milwaukee with number 7. Happy Days was actually a spin-off, kind of.
American style, truer than the red, white, and blue.
So, remember that little plot from Love American Style we mentioned earlier? Well, the plot centered on the Cunninghams getting their first TV set, an event so monumental in 1950 suburbia that it instantly turned Richie into the most popular kid on the block. He even tried using it to impress a girl named Arlene. Spoiler alert, Richie's TV stunt didn't quite win Arlene over. Anson Williams was in the pilot as Potsy. Marion Ross was there as Mrs. Cunningham, but there were no leather jackets, no motorcycle engines, and definitely no Oh, and Richie's dad? That wasn't Tom Bosley, it was Harold Gould, who later became better known as Rose's sweet-talking boyfriend Miles on The Golden Girls. And Joni? She was played by Susan Neher before Aaron Moran made the role iconic.
Oh, great. The only Van Alwen is the prettiest father.
Listen, Dad, I can take her.
The pilot was cute, but it didn't move the needle, until a little movie called American Graffiti came along and made the 50s cool again. Suddenly, ABC execs were digging through their vault like, wait, don't we have something like this? All they needed was a side character with just enough swagger to balance out all the sweetness, and in 1974, Happy Days roared to life. TV historians still debate whether it counts as a true spin-off since the final show was so different, but evolution is baked into television, and in this case, it turned a one-off nostalgia piece into something iconic, and in a weird little twist of fate, a quiet story about a kid trying to impress a girl with his family's new TV ended up giving America one of the most beloved shows of the 70s and early 80s. Number 6. Fonzie's hair was never combed on camera. One of Fonzie's greatest superpowers was his perfect hair. It was always flawless and always in place. But here's what's funny. He never actually combed it on camera. At most, you'd see him pull out a comb, look in the mirror, give a little nod, and put it right back. That was the joke. His hair was so perfect that it didn't need help. The bit got a big laugh from the live audience across multiple seasons and quickly became a Fonzie trademark. Henry Winkler later explained that he insisted Fonzie never be shown actually combing his hair. Why? Well, because greasers in pop culture were always fussing with their hair, and Winkler didn't want Fonzie to look like just another hood. So on the fly, he made up the gag and the audience went wild. It wasn't just funny, it helped turn Fonzie into a myth. He didn't just look cool, he was cool on a supernatural level. The bit was so iconic that Henry Winkler spoofed it years later on Arrested Development.
We're going to take a scenic drive down to the city of industry.
Behind the scenes, of course, it was a different story. That effortless look, it required serious work, lots of time in the makeup chair, and constant touch-ups, but on screen, the illusion was never broken. Even his comb stayed clean. Remember when Fonzie told Richie, "I've had this comb for 9 years and it's never touched my hair"? Now that's commitment to cool. Number 5, Pat Morita left for a flop of a spinoff. Well, 2 flops, actually. Before he was Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita was a familiar face on 2 major sitcoms at the same time. From 1974 to 1976, he played Ah Chew on Sanford & Son, Lamont's good-natured buddy who popped up in several episodes.
Hey, the place looks nice. Yeah, this ain't bad for 3 days' work, huh?
And starting in 1975, he also stepped behind the counter at Arnold's Drive-In on Happy Days as Matsuo Arnold Takahashi. Morita became a fan favorite almost instantly, so when he left after season 3 to headline his own show Mr. T and Tina, it felt like a big move. Unfortunately, the show bombed. It lasted just 5 episodes before being yanked off the air. Then came another shot, a Happy Days spinoff called Blanksy's Beauties starring Nancy Walker.
Oh, the girls aren't here. Yeah, I know. They're upstairs rehearsing.
So why'd you bring the coffee?
Oh, well, the girls can't drink hot coffee and dance at the same time.
That one flopped too. Strike 1, strike 2, but Arnold wasn't out just yet. After both misfires, Morita returned to Happy Days in season 10, and while the show had moved on just fine with Al running the diner, fans were happy to see Arnold back behind the counter again. He was one of those characters who brought a little extra spark to every scene. And of course, just a couple of years later, Morita would land the role that changed everything, Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. From sitcom side character to Oscar nominee, now that's how you make a comeback. Number 4, Gary Marshall told Potsy to get a day job. Anson Williams played Potsy Weber, Richie's wide-eyed best friend who sang a little, goofed a lot, and never quite made it out of sidekick territory. But behind the scenes, Gary Marshall didn't exactly see him as a lifelong leading man. According to Williams, Marshall once pulled him aside and said, "Most of you won't be actors all your lives, especially you, Anson." Oof. Honest, but also kind of encouraging in the most Gary Marshall way.
We sure are. Well, you're good friends, huh? You're all mentioned in my will. Don't talk about that. We don't care about a will.
What do I get?
See, Marshall wasn't trying to be cruel. He actually mentored a lot of the Happy Days cast and urged them to use the Paramount lot like a college. He'd say, learn everything you can because this business is bigger than acting. And Anson listened. After Happy Days, he had some guest spots on shows like Baywatch, Murder, She Wrote, and LA Law, but his real career shift came behind the camera. Williams built a long, successful run as a TV director. We're talking Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place, Sequest DSV, Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager, Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Seventh Heaven, and The Secret Life of the American Teenager. So yeah, Gary's vice might have stung, but it helped Potsy find his real groove.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
Here's the twist. This wasn't even the original theme. Season 1 opened with Rock Around the Clock, but by Season 3, Happy Days, written by Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel and performed by Pratt and McLean, became the official theme and a legit Billboard hit, peaking at number 5 in 1976.
Goodbye, gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you.
It was musical comfort food, pure 1950s fantasy wrapped in 1970s optimism. Simple lyrics, bouncy rhythm, and a vibe so wholesome you could bottle it and sell it at a soda fountain. The theme was re-recorded again in Season 11 with Bobby Arvin on vocals.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
And get this, the song popped up in a Target ad decades later. At this point, Happy Days was less of a theme and more of a time machine.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
But let's be real, nothing beats the one from back in the day. Number 2, a monkey almost played Fonzie. So get this, Micky Dolenz from the Monkees almost played Fonzie. Yeah, imagine the loudest, goofiest member of the Prefab Four sliding into Arnold's, giving double thumbs up and yelling, "Ay!"
Oh, ow! Oh, you're through this time. The jig is up. You're washed up.
That nearly happened. Dolenz actually auditioned for the role and was a strong contender. He had the TV chops, the charm, the comic timing, and of course the monkey hair. But at 6 feet tall, he was just too tall next to Ron Howard. Producers didn't want Fonzie towering over Richie like some kind of greaser giraffe, so the role went to Henry Winkler instead, who was 5'6" and could still own every room he walked into without towering over the rest of the cast. Now, we're not saying Dolenz would have made a bad Fonzie, just a very different one. Louder, goofier, and probably a lot more pratfalls. Less cool guy, more class clown. In the end, it all worked out. Winkler became the Fonz, and America got the version of Happy Days we all remember. Number 1, Happy Days spawned a time-traveling cartoon. Now, just when you thought Happy Days had already jumped the shark, along came the Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, a Saturday morning cartoon where Fonzie, Richie, and Ralph Mouth travel through time with a girl from the future named Cupcake and a talking dog named Mr. Cool. Yes, really. Someone in power looked at a show about 1950s nostalgia and thought, you know what this needs? Time travel. The cartoon ran from 1980 to 1982 and followed the gang as they bounced through different points in history with a futuristic girl named Cupcake while trying to get back to 1957. It was Quantum Leap meets Scooby-Doo, but with more pompadours and way less logic. And believe it or not, Henry Winkler, Ron Howard, and Donnie Most actually voiced their animated selves. That's right, this wasn't just a knockoff. The original guys showed up and gave it their all. Well, sort of. Notably missing was Potsy. Apparently time travel just wasn't his thing. Now, why does this cartoon exist? Don't worry about it. How did Fonzie stay cool in prehistoric times? Well, because he's Fonzie. And why a talking dog? Because it was Saturday morning in the 80s. There had to be a talking dog. It was the law. The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang was peak cartoon chaos, a show that made no sense on paper but somehow still got made. And honestly, we kind of loved that it did, because if anyone could survive time travel, a sci-fi robot, and an anthropomorphic dog, it was the Fonz. Hey! And there you have it, 15 weird facts about the show that made Milwaukee the coolest city in America. Which fact surprised you the most? Which ones did we miss? Drop your comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more nostalgic TV deep dives. Until next time, This is Remember When.